And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another TMDSAS Office Hour. My name is Suleima, and I am the TMDSAS Support Coordinator. So welcome to another session. If this is the first time you're with us, office hours are a space for you to be able to ask your questions and get a quick answer live, or that's at least the hope. And if you haven't been able to check out the rest of our YouTube channel, I highly recommend it. We have other resources out there as well. We do have a series with the admissions deans who give us topics about how to be a competitive applicant, topics such as essays, activities, time management, as well as what holistic review means for you as an applicant. So I highly recommend that you take a look at that because that is coming directly from the admissions offices. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and begin to answer y'all's questions. Again, you can just always enter those into the chat and we'll answer those along the way. One thing that I did want to point out is that I know that we have seen a lot of IMs lately, and just be mindful that our team is going through those messages. Might be taking a little bit longer just because we're still since we did receive a lot of messages over the holiday break, which was a 3-day weekend. Our team is making sure that we go through each of those messages and address those questions that you guys have. Another thing is that here at Team DSCS, we have noticed a couple of trends, so I wanted to share those with you guys. We've noticed some trends in asking questions about academic status. So whenever you're filling out your application, you will have to select what your academic status is for your courses. I highly recommend that y'all take a look at the application guide if you haven't already. We do have application guide will give you a step-by-step instructions where to find things, what to fill out in your application, what this question is asking you. It really is meant for you guys to have it side by side as you are filling out your application. The whole purpose of the application was created for that purpose. So that way you can follow along within the guide with what is in your application because the tabs on the left-hand side are giving you those, it mirrors the application on your end. So I will see if I can share my screen so you guys can take a look at that. I know whenever you start out an application, sometimes it's just you just want to dive in and start answering those questions, working on it. But do know that there is that resource for you, so it can help you along the way, and it helps take a little bit of away that guesswork that a lot of applicants experience. So, okay. So as you can see here, so whenever you are on the www.tmdsas.com, this will be our home page. So I just kind of want to show you guys a little bit of what's on here because it's very helpful for you all. As y'all can see right here, we have our carousel. It has a lot of information here that is relevant to our applicants. So the welcoming page, we are in the 2025 cycle. Is the announcement for the admissions dean sessions that I was talking about. So this session was specifically with our dental school deans. So they provide a lot of insightful information about what they want to see on those dental experiences, as well as other things that are applicable for other applicants, such as what they want to see in your activities. The other thing is a lot of y'all are submitting individual letters of evaluation. So whenever you click this page, it'll actually take you to the evaluators page. It'll tell you, it'll give you the common frequently asked questions, what the letter requirements are supposed to be on your letters. It'll also give you examples of what those letters should look like with the 5 requirements. So a header could look like this or this. You have a date, your name, you as the applicant's name must be on the letter, their signature, and then their contact information. So this is a good page that you can share with your evaluator whenever you let them know that you want that letter of recommendation. If they opt to do the new evaluation form, that is an option. It'll also give them the questions that are going to be listed on there, so that way they know what to expect and can go ahead and fill it out on their end. And they can do this like on a Word document, fill out their answers, and then just copy and paste when they're ready to submit. For veterinary applicants, you guys only get the evaluation form, so that all that information is listed there as well as the technical issues frequently asked questions, and these are like the 4 tips that our team can provide, as well as the technical issues. Frequently asked questions are also located on this page. So going back to our homepage, I want you guys to take a look at this side. On the right-hand side, we have information on our processing times. So here, if you submitted your letters of evaluation via direct upload or interfolio, that information will be listed here. That says 531, so that means our team is currently processing letters that were submitted on that date. If you find that your letter was already submitted on that date or beforehand, and you are wondering why it doesn't show up on your application yet, I recommend that you take a look at your instant messages in your application inbox. That'll most likely tell you why that letter doesn't appear as received on your end. It could possibly be because it was rejected, meaning one of those 5 letter requirements was missing. That's okay. Just get back to your evaluator and let them know that that needs to be on the letter itself, because that is what the admissions committees will be seeing. And they provided those guidelines. They want to see those requirements on the letters. And so they have given us that information so that TMDSAS can review that to make sure every letter has those requirements that they ask for. So going to the application guide, which is what I mentioned earlier, these are the tabs that I was referring to that mirror your application. So for, let's say, the coursework, going back to academic status, because I know we get a lot of questions about that. We also get a lot of questions about AP credit and entering dual credits. All of that can easily just take you to that link. And just by clicking on it at the very top, it'll give you the breakdown information, how to list it. And if you still have additional questions about AP credit, those frequently asked questions can be found here. So very helpful. It's all linked to the information that would be relevant for you guys. When it comes to entering your coursework, I like to go down here to that link on the right-hand side. It'll prompt you to this page, which looks a lot like what you see on your application. So when referring to the academic status, for example, here in this example, we have pre-freshman, so that would be any dual credit courses or AP credits that you have. We also have the option for post-bac. So post-baccalaureate courses are for those courses that you took after you finish your bachelor's degree. So let's say that you finished your degree, but you went back to community college to take a couple classes for your prerequisites or just to kind of get that sense of taking those science courses again. That would be classified as PB, so post-baccalaureate. And then I know a lot of times our applicants, we have a variety of applicants who are not necessarily on a traditional path. Maybe instead of starting out at 4-year community college, maybe you took a lot of dual credit courses. And so whenever you came into your institution, technically you count as a sophomore or even a junior, which is great. That's amazing. Congratulations on getting ahead of the game. But when it comes to your application, it's very simple. You just have to make sure that those first 30 semester hours that you took at your main institution after graduating high school are just listed as freshmen. The schools are aware that that traditional pathway can look different now, but for purposes of the application and just making sure that it's simplifying the process, just go ahead and list those first 30 semester hours that you took at your main institution after graduating high school as freshmen. And the reason for that is because we want to make sure that each term has its own consistent academic status. So, for example, down here you can see, let's say you started at your main institution fall 2021, you can list that as freshman. Spring 2022 was freshman as well. For summers, it could honestly count as either your freshman or sophomore year. Just make sure that you're consistent. But in this example, we used freshman. And as you can see, it continues that path. The fall will be the beginning of your new year, for example, sophomore year. Spring will be that following, and then that summer will be included in the sophomore year. And that's just to make sure that whenever your GPA calculation is calculated, it shows the upward trend or the trend of your GPA that the schools are looking for and would be looking at specifically each of your years. And it just paints the picture a lot easier for that trend to be shown on your GPA. So that's the background as to why your academic status is asked for in the application. And in here we have additional information for grades, course hours. For the course area, I know that can be daunting because you don't want to get it wrong. But just make sure that you take a look at the coursework definitions and classifications. So that's going to be this link right here on the right hand side. That gives you examples of what would classify as biology, chemistry. If you're not sure if it would be non-science or other science, if you scroll down to the bottom, that does give you examples. So take a look at that. Do the best you can with labeling those course areas for your courses. You will not be penalized if those are incorrect, so just do your best. Whenever you submit your application, that will be reviewed during processing. Our team will review your courses to make sure those are entered correctly. They will make adjustments as needed if it's needed on your application. Again, don't worry, those will not count towards you. That's just going to be double checked on our end whenever you submit that application. Additionally, once you submit your application, um, well, first of all, I wanted to point out the coursework process that we have listed up here. The reason for that is just to kind of show you what that process looks like so that one, it's reassuring. Two, you know what's happening, and you can be well informed as to what your next steps would be in case you encounter a situation in which, for example, you are deficient. So, like I mentioned, use your course area definitions and classifications to the best of your ability. Again, you won't be penalized if those are incorrect. Just do your best. Use that information to fill out those courses in your coursework section. Once you submit your application will be in processing. So our team will be reviewing your courses just to make sure those course areas are correct, make corrections if needed. And then after your application is transmitted or sent to the schools, at that point you will have access to what we call is a prescribed coursework report. So this is the PCR. Again, this is only available to you once your application has been sent to the schools. This report will give you information as to each of those prereq areas, and it'll give you information about whether you are deficient in those course areas. So, for example, it'll list out your English courses if you are deficient in any of those hours. For example, those are 6 credits of English that are required. If you're missing 3, that'll show on your PCR. I did want to point out that although that PCR, well, the schools already have your application at that point. The schools can see the PCR and have access to your entire application. Even if you have deficiencies on the PCR, that will not prevent you from getting your application reviewed, and it will not prevent you from being able to get interview invites. So again, if you see those deficiencies on your PCR, don't freak out. Don't panic. It's very normal. So a lot of our applicants are on that traditional path and perhaps submitted their application in the summer of their junior year going into their senior year. So for those applicants, you haven't completed all your prerequisites, and in fact, you'll have to take those in the fall or in the spring 2025. So you haven't completed those prerequisites. It's very normal to see those deficiencies for those courses because you haven't yet completed them. Once you get your final grade, you enter those grades into your application. It'll clear out the deficiency. Another thing that we have noticed is for anyone who had courses during the COVID semester. So if you recall, those are spring 2020 through about, I believe, spring 2022. So those were the peak of the COVID semesters in which schools opted to allow you to take a pass fail satisfactory grade instead of a letter grade. All our member institutions are aware of that process. They are aware that that's what was happening in the schools to accommodate for the changes going on during COVID. So if you took a course that was a prereq that had a pass fail grade, most likely that will not be showing up on your PCR and it'll show up as a deficiency. Again, don't panic. So the PCR will only show you courses that have one met the prerequisite. So it will not show you courses that are in your BCPM GPA. That report is only for prerequisites. So it'll only show your prerequisites. It will only show courses that have a letter grade, with the only exception being AP credit. The AP credits will show up on there with your grade of CR or credit. That's normal. So if you took any dual credit courses or your regular college courses at your main institution, those have to have a letter grade for it to show up on the PCR. If in this case, if you have a prereq that you took during those COVID semesters for a pass fail grade, satisfactory, that will not be showing up on your PCR. However, check your college coursework section because if that is labeled as a prerequisite, so for example, physics lecture, lab, or whatever the case may be, that is what the schools will see as well. So the PCR is kind of like a quick glance that gives the schools an idea of where you are at, if you're missing prerequisites, if you've completed those. They will also have access to that college coursework section that you have access to, and they will see that those courses were under those COVID terms. And so they will be able to see that you do have that prerequisite completed. However, the reason why it's not showing up on your PCR is because of that pass, fail, satisfactory grade rather than a letter grade. So again, if you see any deficiencies on your PCR, I highly recommend that if it's a prerequisite that you took during COVID, please go into your college coursework, double check that it's in there. If it is and it's listed as English, statistics, biology, chemistry, any of your prerequisites, you're good to go. You're fine. It's just that pass fail grade that is not allowing it to show up. And if you took any dual credit courses, make sure that those also have a letter grade. Those are also college courses that need to have a letter grade for them to show up on your PCR. Sometimes there are mistakes in which the incorrect course number was entered or the incorrect name or prefix. That can happen. So just double check your college coursework before. I know you'll instantly freak out or probably panic because you don't want to see deficiencies on the PCR. But I recommend that you go into your college coursework to check what that looks like. Again, COVID semesters, that's very normal. If you still have to take your prereqs in the fall and spring, that's very normal. It's going to be okay. And you can always send us a message in your application portal to double check if needed. Okay, so I already kind of give y'all a rant, or not even a rant. It's just information that we've seen, and it's actually available on our application guide. I know it is pretty long, so it could be daunting to take a look at, but that information is there. And as more applications are being sent out to the schools, it is normal for us to keep receiving these questions, but it shouldn't be a reason for alarm. One other thing is that if you have a deficiency and you did take your prerequisite, but it's not labeled as a prerequisite, you can get in contact with us to see if you will need to submit a course appeal. Okay, so I will go ahead and start as answering these questions, which thank you guys so much for already putting these into the chat. And go ahead and ask any questions that you have along the way as we answer these. So this first question is, I'm volunteering at a dental clinic and I'm not sure where to place this activity on the application. For now, I placed it in the community engagement, and that is more than okay. So for the applicant on your end, it is up to you to make that determination of where you want to place your activities. Um, you guys are the experts. You know what you learned, you know what you did, you know what you experienced, you know the values that you gained from those activities. And based on that information, it's going to be up to you to make that determination where to best locate this activity. So here at TMDSAS, we can't tell you where to place this. We don't provide advising in that manner to tell you, yes, this needs to go in this category. No, it's all going to be up to you. And just, I recommend that you trust your intuition because, again, y'all are the experts and know the activity best. Some activities can be taken in many different directions depending on what you want to communicate to the schools. And the schools understand that. We did have the session with the dental deans, and for a lot of questions about where to place activities, they kind of reiterated the same thing. You know, it could go here, but it could also go here. It kind of just depends on where you want to place it. That was our overall approach to how those activities can be placed and categorized. So again, don't. I hope that you guys don't stress out too much and just trust your intuition. And Fatima, I think that's a great place to put that experience if you believe that is the best fit for what you did for that activity. So for this question, how often can I update the future courses slash plan courses after submission? Great question. And this is all the time. As much as you need, you can always come back and let us know via message that you need us to unlock a term for you to be able to make that update. So here on the next steps after submitting page in the application guide, we do have a list of approved changes that can occur after your application has been submitted. As you can see, updating your grades at the end of the term is a must. So you definitely want to keep that up to date. If you originally signed up for some courses or you put placeholders into your application, but once you register for the courses, you know exactly what you're taking and that looks different than what you originally entered, that's okay. Just let us know, send us a message like it says here. It gives you instructions on to what to do. Send us a message, let us know what term that you need us to unlock so that way you can make those changes. If you don't have any changes to make and you complete your fall courses, all you need to go in there is change your NY grade to a letter grade. A further list of approved changes after submitted are also located on here, and it'll tell you exactly what can and cannot be updated post submission. Um, Immediately, the two sections that I know you cannot make any changes to are activities and essays. So just make sure that whenever you submit your application, you take a look at those sections to make sure there's no errors, misspellings, and your dates are correct, your hours are correct, because those will not be changed after submitting. How do I talk about volunteering activities I haven't already done but are planned before October? I put it in current activities, but in the description, do I talk in the past tense? Great question. So I will give you the TMDSAS reply, and then I'll give you the reply of the deans. So our reply to this question is, so yes, so if you are going to start this activity before the application deadline, that's definitely going to go under current activities. As far as what you want to talk about for that description, since it hasn't yet started but will be started before the application deadline, you can include information as to what you expect to do in that activity, what you maybe perhaps it's a future employment and maybe you already have the job description. You can enter information about that or what you hope to get out of that activity. Either way works fine. And of course, that could be listed in future tense, and anything that you've already completed, that can definitely be past tense. For more information about that, I definitely recommend that you go to the activities section in the application guide. So we have some information here from our TMDSAS director that gives you information about activities, but I highly recommend that you scroll down to Busting Myths About Activities with Dr. Calloway from Long School of Medicine. She definitely addresses this question, what tends to use for your descriptions, what format you can use, how to talk about your activities. She provides so many great examples, way better than we can, to give you that guidance that y'all need for y'all's activities. So I highly recommend that you take a look at this. But overall, I do want to point out that the overall guidance is to kind of go with what you think feels right for your descriptions, and then just make sure that you're consistent with that. So if you, for example, if you decide to use past tense for those activities that you've already completed, that's okay. Just make sure you're consistent with all of those. All your past activities, all are in the past tense. Anything in the future, all those in the future will be future tense. So just make sure that you're consistent. So then it flows and it makes sense for you, but also for the reader of the admissions committee who will be taking a look at your activities. Okay, so do the Texas Dental Schools care about our SAT and ACT scores? Like, do they take that into account when it comes to admissions? I have improved a lot since then, so I am just worried they would frown upon it. So no, the SAT and the ACT is not as important and looked at as for example, your DAT. That exam is going to be more reflective of how you would perform in dental school, what they want to see from you, how you perform with your exams. It will also take a look at your GPA, all of that. Everything else is considered in holistic review. So the SAT is not a deal breaker. That is not going to, they're not going to look at that and say, wow, they did really bad in high school. not considered for dental school. That's not how they review applications. I can guarantee that. Um, with holistic review, we do have on our YouTube channel, or it's going to be a little funky because I'm also live. But if you go to our YouTube channel, we did have the session with Dr. Banks on holistic review. It's part of the admissions Dean's Corner series. So take a look at that session. He does go into depth about holistic review, what they look at holistically, not just your grades, not just um, your DAT, not just this part. It's the whole application that will be looked at. Um, in this case, I what I see based on what they have let us know, if they see that maybe you perhaps didn't have the best ACT score, but then they saw that throughout your college terms, your courses, your grades got better. They saw that upward trend in your GPA. That gives them a better indication as to how you would perform. And they will take the whole picture into consideration, not just the SAT and ACT. So I wouldn't stress out too much about the SAT and ACT. That's just listed on there. Just that provides information as to your high school history. And then it kind of gives them like a starting point that they can look at and continue to look at the rest of the courses that you took in college, as well as your MCAT score, your DAT score, your activities, your essays. All of that is taken into consideration for considering you as a student at their school. Yeah, so again, don't I hope you guys don't stress out too much about that. You just need to list your scores on there, and that's okay if they're not the best. Mine was average, so nothing impressive. So again, don't worry about that, because ultimately that was in high school, and then now I'm sure your grades are much better now in college, and you can definitely show that upward trend now. So for this question, I have classes that are 0 hours. That gives me just credit. Should I put this into my application, or is there something I can put in place of those? So with 0 credit hour classes, the rule of thumb is one, if you repeated that course for a better grade, that course most likely shows up as maybe like a W or a Q or a failing grade, and it doesn't give you any credit hours. You'll actually need to enter the credit hours you would have obtained if you would have passed the class. So if that's the case for you, where the 0 credit hours show up because you had to repeat the grade, and you didn't get credit for that initial attempt, you still have to report that first attempt, and enter the credit hours you would have received. The other rule of thumb with coursework, and you can go to entering coursework here in the guide, information we have here. Let's see. When it comes to credit hours, do not list any courses that were 0 credit hours earned when it comes to chapel, orientation, peer assistant, like a seminar for freshmen. So those don't need to be listed on your application. Those weren't worth credit because you didn't get any credit hours awarded to those. So in those instances, you can leave those off. So just to reiterate, if you had to retake it for a better grade, and that's why you had those 0 credit hours, report the hours you would have obtained if you would have passed. If you have the 0 hours because of one of these examples, leave it off. You don't have to enter it into your application. Okay. And during my dental mission trip, I shadowed at multiple clinics, but on the application it only has space for one. What should I do? So again, it's going to be up to you how you want to list out your activities based on you know them best. So when it comes to activities, you could, if you wanted to, in this case, let's take a look at the dental experiences just to get an idea of what is listed on there. Let's see. Dental experiences could include related to clinical dental experiences, shadowing, health science experiences. Let's see. I know we have a couple of manual dexterity. So when it comes to different shadowing at multiple clinics, it sounds like you might want to list them out separately. just because from the session that we had with the dental deans, which is that most recent one that you can see on our homepage. And I'll put this back up so you can refer to it. Oh, so in this session that we had, it is available on our YouTube channel, and that is the title of it. The dental deans did say that when it comes to a situation like in your case where you had multiple clinics or multiple dentists that you shadowed, then in that case you would place those entries separately, so that way you can also enter information about the clinic. So like the name of the clinic, name of the dentist you shadowed. They want to know who those people were, what clinics those were. Apparently, it's a small world in the dental world, so they would definitely be able to kind of know where you volunteered at if based on the name and the name of the dentist that you shadowed at. And again, take a look at that session because they do give you a lot of information specifically about dental experiences, manual dexterity, which I think would be very helpful for all our dental applicants. Okay, I am confused on how to list my poster presentations for research. Is there a citation format I should follow? Is it possible to list a conference separately from my research? Again, it's going to be up to you guys how you want to label your activities, how you want to sort them out into your activities page. Unlike other application services, we don't have a limit as to how many activities you can enter. So please do take the liberty to enter these in the way that it makes sense. If you feel like it needs to be separated out, please do so. Trust your intuition. Again, you know what you did for each activity and can, based on the guidance that is provided, take that and for example, take that and like run with it, so let's take a look at the research experience here in the application guide. So for research activities, you will include research activities paid or volunteer that you have participated in since graduating high school. Of course, veterinary applicants is the exception to that rule. You can list research activities since starting high school. You would include any publications that were submitted as well as published, abstracts, presentations, and posters. Include the research activity name, start date, etc., and a brief description of the research. If the research culminated in any publications, abstracts, presentations, or posters, you will then have an additional opportunity to provide details with a 500 character limit. So, with the research activity section, you can list your research activities. And if it culminated in a publication, abstract, presentation, or a poster, you will then have additional space to talk about that. Perhaps enter the citation and additional details that you think are relevant, and of course fit within the 500 character count limit. With research activities, I highly recommend that you take a look at this video, entering your activities with confidence. So whenever you go to that, I recommend that you watch it on YouTube because bottom, oh, it's not showing up on your end. Let me switch my screen. Let's see. Okay, so whenever you're in YouTube and you're watching this specific video, which is located at the top of the activities page, we actually have timestamps for each of your questions. So here we have if a research activity resulted in a publication, information about research activities, and you can just click on that timestamp and it'll take you right to that part of the video that our director addresses and gives you guidance about that section. So if you have any further questions about activities, I highly recommend that you also go here. A lot of these questions are listed here for you guys to take a look at. So highly, highly recommend that you take a look at that. And again, with activities, we can help you out with, current activities, entering those dates. But again, with advising as to where to locate your activities, how to place them, and that is going to be up to you guys. Okay. I know for dental experiences section, it says to not put expected future hours, but what if it's an ongoing thing? So for current activities, again, those here, let me just show you what those look like so you can see what that breakdown is. You will have to enter those under current and planned activities. Okay, so those are going to be this link at the top. What about activities that I started and will continue after the application? So in here, you will have to list activities both in current and planned as ongoing activities. So here you would enter your estimated expected hours, but just make sure that you don't overinflate. Another resource that we have here are the school panels that address those activities. So for further guidance on those descriptions and what those could look like, you can take a look at that in there. But in the dental experience, let's take a look at that. Let's see. I think you might be referring to, is this something on the application itself? Because I don't see it in our application guide. But our schools know that with ongoing activities, they're going to see the current hours. For example, if let's say that I did my activity, it started or it will start in August. So they know that in that case, I haven't started it. They know that because it'll start before the application deadline, it's going to be under my current activities. Between August to the end of October, I would enter the hours that I expect to complete for those dental experiences. And then under the plan activities, I will list that activity again from November to the end date. Let's say that my end date for that activity will end in February 2025. I will list what I expect to get for those hours in the planned activities. So this is just kind of like a projection of the hours that you will obtain. But of course, you don't want to make it, you don't want to overinflate it. For example, if you have an activity that's a couple hours, like let's say 4 hours a week for like a couple of months, let's say four, on average, that looks like about 32 hours or so, or check my math. But of course, it's not going to be 100. So it's just, just using common sense to, not overinflate those, but do put the projection of your hours, even though you haven't started. So of course, you're not going to have the exact amount, but the schools will know that that is a projection. With our community service, if we have an activity we have been doing since high school, do we start from when we were in high school or from once we graduated college? So again, the rules for activities, how far back you can go with those. Let's go to the top. How far back should I go? Unless you're a veterinary applicant, you have to enter activities since you graduated from high school. So I know that some applicants get scholarships in high school for their tuition or an activity that will happen in college. Since dental, medical, and podiatry applicants can only list activities since you've graduated high school, in that case, you can put something like, let's say you graduated high school in, let's say, May 2022. In that case, you would list your scholarship that you received as May 2022 because, again, you can only list activities since you graduated from high school. Now, if you are a veterinary applicant, you can go ahead and list it um, as part of your high school experiences because you are allowed to enter experiences that you participated in high school. I hope that addresses your question. If not, let me know if you need a follow-up to that. Okay, similar situation as another question. Shadowing doctors at the same hospital but in different specialties. Should I list them all separately? Um, I can't remember the exact advice that our deans, dental school deans, gave us, but this is also applicable for physician doctors that you might have shadowed. Again, take a look at that video with Dr. Kellaway, busting myths about activities. Take a look at that video from the admissions deans that we hosted with the dental deans. They do give you that specification and guidance for this particular question, and it's different hospitals, different specialties. If I can remember correctly, the guidance is about listing those separately, but just to double check, I recommend that you take a look at those videos. Okay. Should I consider myself a non-traditional student if I graduated and am now applying a year post-graduation? So it sounds like you might have taken a gap year. That's actually very common nowadays for students to take a gap year and work on making their application more competitive or getting more experiences. Let me take you guys to the definition of a non-traditional applicant. So if you go to applicant history, let's see. Think it's or education history. Yes, education history in the application guide, and you go to education and training history, it'll show you the definition for non-traditional applicants. So this is self-identified, self-reported. So if you believe that you are a non-traditional applicant, you can go ahead and select that you are. You'll enter in the information in the description box why you are a non-traditional applicant. Typically, with non-traditional applicants, this is going to be typically applicants who have career changes, who went back to school after many, many years of being out. So maybe I know we've seen applicants who maybe went to school in the 90s and went back to school recently to finish their prerequisites or get that refresher on their science courses. That's a good example of what a non-traditional applicant can look like. Maybe you were in the military. Maybe there's other situations that you consider as part of that make you a non-traditional applicant. The main reason why we list that as examples is because we want to make sure that this information helps us get more information about applicants who not necessarily took that traditional pathway to medicine, to dentistry, veterinary, et cetera, et cetera. We want to make sure that we have resources that are available to those students as well. So that self-reported identifying as non-traditional applicant, ultimately it's going to be up to you. Those are some examples of what that looks like. Again, it just helps the school see your journey to professional school, and it also helps TMDSAS see what kind of resources or gaps are needed to be filled to make sure applicants have what they need. Okay. If we volunteer under multiple dentists at a single clinic, can we list those? Okay, I think this is a similar one. Again, it sounds like you can list this out separately, but for the best guidance and just to make sure that I did say that correctly, double check with those videos that were posted from the dental schools from Dr. Calloway. Those are coming directly from the deans themselves, so I would definitely advise that y'all check my response with what they have to say. Okay, can you please explain how we can accurately document hours for volunteering or shadowing/work? I have volunteering events that did not always reoccur on a weekly basis. Again, just do the best you can with those entries. I know that some categories you will have to enter the hours that you did on average a week. Just do the best you can. If your cumulative hours are a certain number, just make sure that it kind of aligns with that. Should I list my position as learning assistant under employment? Again, up to you how you want to list that. If you were paid for that position, you can list it under employment. If you want to highlight leadership skills from that activity, you can also list it under leadership. Remember, there are exceptions to the rule of entering those activities only once. Those are going to be listed in the application guide. So to refer to that, you can always take a look at that. When does the academic calendar year start? If I took a class over the summer after my freshman year, would I classify myself as a freshman or still a sophomore? So that actually depends on you. So if you were here earlier in the session, you can go here to the coursework and the application guide, go to entering your coursework, and we have that example of what that sequence can look like. So just make sure that you're consistent. So in this example provided in the guide, that summer after your freshman year, It's still classified as a freshman, but if you want to list it as a sophomore, you definitely can. Just make sure that every summer after that is the beginning of that um, new academic calendar year. Where you input colleges you've attended, I have inputted a career college that resulted in a certificate. And I received a certificate from a job/online. Why does it say that I am missing terms? Great question. Let's take a look at that. So whenever you go to your education history, you would enter colleges attended. So here you would list the institutions that you attempted or attended to attempt college credit courses. And then once you enter those, it'll show you here. You will also need to select, so you'll have to enter your start to end date for those colleges attended. And then once you go to terms attended, that section, you will need to individually enter each term. So, for example, Stanford University, someone attended from fall 18 to spring 2022. They had to list individual terms for each term that they took at that school. Those would be listed in there. So I think that's where it's telling you that you're missing a term. You might have already entered this school under colleges attended, you enter your attendance date, but you haven't yet listed those individual terms that you took at that school. So if you have any questions about that, I recommend that you take a look at the information here, but also send us a message in your TMDSAS application portal anytime that we get a message that is connected to your application, and it allows our team to quickly go to your application and help you out with your question. Okay. I attended a Canadian university not recognized by the THECB, so my course credits do not appear on my GPA, shows at 0, calculations for PCR, also not listed. So no need to send your transcript. Those are not needed at this time. And this also accounts for US and Canadian institutions. You don't have to submit your transcripts at this time. This is going to be very normal for anyone who is a Canadian applicant who went to a Canadian school. It is going to be very normal for your GPA to be 0, for PCR to show as 0. And that's just because those courses were taken at a Canadian institution, which is technically a foreign institution. However, because those courses do count towards prerequisites, the schools will just need to go into your college coursework section, individually check for your prerequisites. They also know that the GPA and PCR won't be generated because of that. So that's very normal. They see this every cycle, every year. We see applicants who are applying from Canadian institutions, and that's very normal. Unfortunately, it's not going to show up on your GPA or PCR. With foreign institution transcripts, again, don't worry about those yet. Foreign institution transcripts that can be sent over are those that were not from US or Canadian institutions. So at this time, don't worry about sending in transcripts. With transcripts, we have this big announcement on that page. We do not need those to be sent our way anytime soon. The only time when those are needed are once Team DSS sends you the transcript email request. So that'll come from dental medical applicants who have been accepted. The schools will let us know, hey, this applicant has been accepted. We will send them that email request. If you are a veterinary applicant, the schools will let us know, hey, this person has already interviewed at our school. That'll prompt you to receive the email request, give you information as to how to send transcripts to TMDSAS. Okay, so we have a few minutes left, so I'm going to try to go through this a lot quicker. I am starting in a RDA program over the summer that is 12 weeks long. How could I enter this information in my application? Again, do the best you can with that. It sounds like this could be an activity. Decide what activity you want that to be listed under, and you can list those hours as best as you can with that. Do I need to list my AP classes under coursework? Yes. Again, coursework will be here in our application guide. Information as to how to enter your AP credits will be listed here, and you'll get more detailed information as to how to enter those And of course, I recommend that you take a look at the office hour session that we did about AP credits, and the frequently asked questions are also listed on there as well. Okay. If you want to double check and see if your transcript is needed, you can always send us a message in your portal. That way, your team members can take a look at that since you do have technically a foreign institution, but it's Canadian. You can always double check with our team by sending a message and see if it's needed to send. But just, I recommend that you double check first before sending anything over. I know it says to not repeat activities, but am I allowed to input activities through being a dental assistant in the manual dexterity section, even if I also have it in my dental experience? So again, double check with that session that we had with the dental deans. They do address this information. You know, what should be going into your dental activities? What should be going into the manual dexterity? Um, and just because I want to make sure that you guys, well, one, that I'm able to get through these questions, but also um, that y'all receive additional guidance. Just double check my responses with what they have to say. And yes, the sessions are recorded. This session will be recorded as soon as we log off and we end the live stream. All our recorded sessions with the deans, with the TMDSAS director, all those can also be found here in the activities section of the application guide. You know, this one, it was recorded from a live session that we had with the director. This session, live recording that we had with Dr. Kellaway, and you can always go to our YouTube channel, search for the playlist for Admissions Dean's Corner. That'll show you the most recent video, which was the one with the dental deans. And they provide a lot of information about activities because their session was specifically about activities, specifically about dental experiences as it applies to dental applicants. So definitely check that out. Okay, let's see. Just want to make sure that I can get through as many as I can since we only have 4 minutes left. And again, if I don't get to your question, no worries. Just send us a message in your application portal. If I volunteered at a youth nonprofit organization for 6 months, then following the school year, I was paid asked to be a paid tutor, can I enter it under employment and as community engagement? Yes. Remember that employment is that exception to the rule of only entering activities once. That will, if you have an activity that also resulted in a paid position for employment, you can also list it in there. And just make sure that your descriptions are not the same, they're not copied and paste. If you're going to list your activity twice under community engagement and employment, make sure that the employment only talks about your employment aspect. Community engagement is only about the community engagement part. Okay, let's see. Anywhere to list certifications on the application? Yes, that can go under, depending on what it was, it can be either academic or non-academic recognition. If my statistics course is labeled as a bio class because it was a stats and bio and medicine, will it still count towards my prereq status requirement? If you haven't submitted your application just yet, use the resources that we have in the coursework section. This is the coursework definitions and classifications. You can also find them here. And then just do the best you can with the information that is provided to make the determination as to the course area that you'll select. If you've already submitted your application and if you have questions about whether this met the prereq um, for either bio or statistics, you can look at your PCR and let us know if you have any questions by sending us a message in your portal. Okay. If I sent my DAT scores to all schools after I took the exam, what do I need to do to release my scores now that I've submitted my application? Okay, so in this case, now that the schools have your application, any updates that you made to your application, they will see that on their end, and it's readily available for them to download. So the schools, any updates on our end, it's readily available for them to see. The schools download this information on their end. It can be either daily, Weekly, it just depends on how they do it on their end, but that information is available for them to see. So to answer the rest of your question, what do I need to do to release my scores now that I submitted my application? And if you go to the application guide of the test score section here, how do I release my scores? In this case, TAT, that'll give you the information here, what you need to do, what to look out for to make sure that you do get those scores released. Okay. All right, so it is 2 o'clock and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Unfortunately, I didn't get through all the questions, but feel free to send these via instant message in your application portal. That way, our team can take a look at that. A lot of these questions we were able to find in the application guide, guidance as to how to answer those. So I highly recommend that you take a look at this. Again, go to www.tmdsas.com. You'll land on our homepage. Go to Apply Now, select Application Guide, review the sections that mirror the sections of your application for guidance. And if you have any further questions, you can send a message in your portal. Whenever you're logging into your TMDSAS application portal, at the top right hand corner, it says send a message to TMDSAS. Click on that, create the body of the message, ask your question. Questions will typically, our team will try to address within the 2 business day window turnaround. It might take a little bit longer right now because we're still trying to make sure that we get through all the questions that were sent throughout the time following the 3 day weekend. But other than that, our team does address those questions. This is a way to get personalized help because, again, whenever you send that message, it is attached to your application, and our team can quickly go to your application and take a look at what you need us to take a look at to be able to help you. So thank you guys so much for showing up, asking great questions. I hope to see you guys next week. Remember that this is available to everyone weekly, every Wednesday at 1 p.m., same time, same channel. All right, everyone, I wish you all the best of luck. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and send those in the application portal. I'll see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.